shout out and kudos if you are doing such and such. But if we are not doing the proposed such and such, then within our mental body, it's flying over our head or through us, and it's not, there's a realization that's not sticking. What am I talking a friggity freaking bout, biggity bout, schlout, clout? What am I talking about? It's not for me to like, yeah, baby, rev it up, vroom, vroom. It's not for me to draw lines in a toxic way. It's for me to draw lines in a mentally enlightening way. There is, and you could just go back to like, classic Bruce Lee adages where he like attempts to iterate the meaning of do or do not. No try, just do it or do not. It's like, it's either you're doing it or you're not doing it in a modern way. But what am I even talking about? As we kind of garner this rhetoric, of saying we're having a particular prime objective, but we're not necessarily doing that, that's a critical distinction of like the working energetics behind your company, because what your company really is following up on are just the components of something like life in general, the purification of the chemical contamination, the following up on the real mental principles and etiquettes, and then the applied action / faith, or the applied faith in works. So those three are like the surface level things. What separates, the company saying they're doing it for a certain reality mission, as opposed to an organization of anything actually really doing something to balance the reality. Because if you were to ask me like, okay, so in simple words and language, what is your like what is just like your standard objective mission? So for me to reply as a simple answer, a standard objective mission would be to see like we're not necessarily seeing our like what the reality, how the reality cares about us on the surface level arena. We're not necessarily seeing that. And on another note, we're not necessarily seeing how we could be evolving like on a spirit basis level, and how that's expressing itself or having a chance to express itself based on the different filters that are like open to receive some type of mutability of productive change. So within what's going on here is like, if you were to ask me, let me take off my hat so I don't look like, too rinky dink, but that, that rinky dink, it kind of grounds different aspects of you, and then they all kind of work in harmoniously. But so like just to bring some more mental ground basis to this conversation, it's like, what could be a significant, relevant core value / quote unquote prime objective, end quote, that people aren't doing at all. So that's the invitation to like realize the quote unquote new game. And what do I mean by the new game? A whole new time and space that we're vividly entering into, but like our approach and our relationship with that is based on our like level of realness and authenticity, or lack thereof. And if we have a lack thereof, that's not necessarily going to pair with all the other energetic components of ourselves, because how we strengthen one part of ourselves, that could either like rise up the whole boat or have a hole in the boat, because we are likened unto like something like a boat, you know, and our teams, obviously they're their own ship, you know. So if all of them are like having like a harmony within a different type of deeper energetic truth, then that is like the essence of like how you upgrade your like a ship in itself. So like you know, I'm seeing the energetic open source nature of how that's always been a thing, because you know there's like there's like savage communities in the pockets of earth, you know. And obviously you could be more scholarly cratic with the terminology of like whatever you want to call it, you know. But let me sit down to bring more ground bases. So like the purpose of this video is, what is something of a simplified, like quote unquote prime objective, end quote, for these so-called any new organization or company, but it doesn't have to be of that likes, but usually those kind of subject organizations are like following up on something what they're proposing as their own rhetoric, and whatever they're proposing as their own rhetoric on a reality basis level, they're only to some percentage and degree only doing that to some percentage of an actuality or lack thereof, you know. So that's the thing. So it's like, the spiritual mission, the spiritual thing, it's already its own platform, but it's not necessarily like digitalized. But obviously I understand that it could be in different arenas and expressions, and that's cool for everyone to however that's done with your level and percentage and degrees of actuality. That's going to be like the game breaker, you know. So that's what the game breaker is. But another thing is making one critical difference on the difference between corruption and detrimentality. Just because something is corrupt, that doesn't necessarily mean it has like a energetic notion or an energy notion that it's like going towards levels of detriment. And what is detriment? Detriment is just like, on a mathematical equatable level, something of like a certain unaligned form of energy called, that could be classified as distortion, is multiplying with other distortion, and distortion within distortion, that's a trajectory of detriment. And whereas corruption is, it could be influenced by that detriment, creating a mental emanation of ignorance, and that level of ignorance is attempting to corrupt the subject or object of energy consciousness and energy sentience, and on some pace or rate or transition within different influences and different variables and variances, it's attempting to be more corrupt. So that's the difference between corrupt and detriment. So it's like they're like in different states, and they could be synonymous, but there could be like critical distinctions and distinguishments. So like I like to reiterate, because like every time I like say something, even if I repeat myself and I say it in a different time, I kind of understand it in a different way, and it also connects in a different way. So I feel like those who mind don't mind, and those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. I know how that could be kind of cliche, but sometimes we all need like we could pick one cliche that works for our body types and stuff and self. But yeah, so with what my little spiritual personal objective is doing, that could reach out into whatever fucking harmony it can and broaden its own horizons however it will may, then let it be so, by the grace of whatever the top down intelligence is. But me clarifying my own spiritual mission that's neutral, that could be influenced to harmonic organizations and things that are really on par with a harmonic congruency vision, then there would have to be some sort of level of congruency or agreement on there's a resonant match that is clicking and checking itself, or the phase after the reassessment where the ignition is being started. It's igniting. The thing that's igniting is the congruency. And what is the congruency? After digesting the clarity which is needed of do I really approve of what this person's doing and why, you know, but like before I approve of what someone else is doing, what are they doing, you know, like what specifically are they doing, what particularly are they doing? They, as their spiritual neutral sovereign selves, are establishing a clear spiritual mission, and that spiritual mission could be relatable and harmonic to other things, be it anything, and that having its own deeper spiritual timestamp respectively for just the precision of its own deeper spiritual algorithm hyper respectively. But what is the clear mission? It's making this distinction between identifying certain identifying and recognizing organizations, their levels of corruption or their levels of detriment, and seeing how that's already a spiritual reality. It's already a different type of context of a video game already happening. So that being mission number one, and then mission number two being, I already said it, but I'm going to repeat it here, is just seeing like, oh yeah, like your level of like your participation with the evolution of like respectively everything. And then seeing on the flip side, the standard inverted side of that, how we have like random miscellaneous material government contracts that aren't necessarily, you know, beneficial or detriment, you know, they just what they are. But to identify them on a neutral way, that's the difference. So that's the casual game breaker. And this is just very casual and swift with it. Obviously I'm always going to come back with like, you know, a new piece, but this is just like, I'm just kind of like, you know, bringing clarity and like, you know, kind of like, I guess there's a certain context of my heart chakra that's like kind of like open, you know, like, you know, the mind, body, soul within the chakras, like my mind circulating and working with all the chakras. It's like kind of like, I just have like, I have a different relationship with my heart chakra, you know. It's just like it's doing its own accord, you know. The G center, like go to my Instagram with a neutral perspective and you'll be like way more like kind of like well informed of like, you know, what's going on. So like, so the basis of this video and the theme of this video is the critical, real, actual difference between my own spiritual mission and everybody else's like, kind of old related system project, you know, respectively. But like, obviously like not just kind of like seeing the critical difference respectively of like how you could see like a project, an organization, or a company, is it functioning from outdated principles and systems, or is it not? And if it's not, how are those organizations casually coming together respectively, you know, on like a real harmonic level? So that would be the difference. So thank you guys.